Peace. This is Seven Sabali once again coming to you. I hope everybody's owning your day. I am here with a Team Woods production, and we are collaborating with United Returning Citizens. The goal here is to increase voter registration here in Youngstown, Ohio, but also across the United States. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Dion Dowdy, and we're going to get started.
Good morning. My name is Dion Dowdy. I'm the executive director with United Returning Citizens. United Returning Citizens, I'm going to read what our mission is, and then I'm going to break it down what I think that it is. It says United Returning Citizens is a movement preparing men, women, and families for successful transition into the community, developing a culture of mutual support and individual responsibility. We work together to improve the quality of life for self and others through providing access to service such as employment, housing, education, and addiction recovery. So for me, it's returning citizens transitioning to a new lifestyle, a new thought, a new way of living, a new way of being in the community, and that's basically what we're doing. This organization was personal to me because I do have family members that are returning citizens, and I wanted a place when they get out that they can come and they could be self-sufficient citizens. And so with that, I came up with the idea with another guy. His name was Wayne Higgins, and thus is United Returning Citizens. And so with the voters, when my guys come in, I do have them register to vote. And I had seen like in the last election when they came to go vote, because the vote to vote was like right next door, they would just come in and be like, Miss D, who should I vote for? They wanted to vote, but they didn't know who to vote for or why or how. And that's the uncomfortableness of the voting. And so with this platform, we just want to give them basic education that they can use at their tools to make their decision for voting, because their vote is important. And so today we're going to have two co-hosts with us. Our first co-host is going to be Scott Fran. Scott?
Actually. Good morning. My name is Scott Fain. I'm a part of Team Woods, associate producer on things like this. I do all the voiceover work for the stuff that we do. Artist, investor, podcaster. That's the quick description. I came to start voting not at 18, but I was in my 20s, around the time that George W. Bush got elected. That seemed like a really good time to kind of galvanize me to really get into politics and start to understand how it worked. And ever since then, I haven't missed an election yet. I even vote on the every 2 years, basically, just to make sure that we have a part in this country. People died to give us the right to vote, and I just think it's important, not just because of that, but because there's important things that I think we need to stand for, we need to be about. And one of the easiest, simplest ways that you can be about a citizen in this country is just to vote your interests. Take an interest and vote your interest.
Yeah.
And thank you.
And I kind of want to piggyback on that. Like you said, you voted when you were like 18 and started to 8. And I've always pushed my children to vote, but they always express. And so I had to listen, because they were millennials, of them not trusting the voting system, of them not trusting that their voice is being heard. So these are some of the things and some of the questions that people were asking, and that we're going to try to kind of talk about, like why are they're not trusting enough to enforce a right that was given to them or that our ancestors fought for, and where is their mindset in that? And, why do I have to constantly push? It's just a thing like you just have to come with me, and vote. And then just like hopefully, as they get older, that they will understand, why the push, or why the concern that I have, or why did I always, have them to vote, because I just want them to know that their voice is important. All of our voices are important, regardless of where you come from, your background, your economic background. Our voice are important. That makes our community. That makes your city. That makes your state. So our next co-host, this is a very, very passionate woman that is passionate about voting, about the community, and the 1/3 not her. And so I'm very appreciative that she took the time to even come to be on our podcast, to voice her passion and her education and her concern for voter and voter registration. So, Mrs. Charlene, I don't have your last name on here.
Blackwell.
Her name is Charlene, because I want to be able to introduce her correctly. Charlene Blackwell.
Thank you so much. To speak to what you just said, to give it some context, first of all, my first election was George Bush Sr., HW. So when at the end of the Reagan era, when he was running against Bill Clinton, and I could not wait to be a part of it, even though I didn't quite know what I was doing. I just knew that I'm 18. I get to vote. And then as things started to happen and I became more active and interested in the socio-economic things that were going on, the 92 LA riots was a big part of my initial journey into politics, and to understanding that what our voices meant collectively. Growing up in Warren's a small town. I grew up in a different time. It wasn't the thing for youth to be interested in, to have people who were around to really explain what activism was, and to set those goals and those things out there for young people to understand the power of their voice. And to give some context to exactly what you just said. In 2016, 1.4 million black voters in the state of Florida did not vote. Trump won Florida by 113,000. In the state of Georgia, 898,000 black voters did not vote. Trump won by 211,000. In North Carolina, 487,000 black voters did not vote. Trump won by 173,000. In Michigan, 393,000 black voters did not vote. Trump won by 11,000. Pennsylvania, 367,000 black voters did not vote. Trump won by 44,000. Now, there's a saying that politicians love putting out there: as Ohio goes, so goes the country. It is a fact that no Republican president in the history of this country has ever won the presidency as a Republican without carrying the state of Ohio. So, our voice is the voice that is going to carry this country. What it must include is we have to understand our buying power. We have a $1 trillion buying power in this nation. We have the ability to create an economy within this economy on our own. With that, why do you think that with the George Floyd death, all of a sudden, where corporations were quiet 4 years ago when Colin Kaepernick first took his knee, we didn't hear a peep out of a Nancy Pelosi. We didn't hear a peep out of a governor. We didn't hear anything out of any major corporation with the exception of Nike. Not one. Now, all of a sudden, when we collectively said, this is our voice and this is our vote and this is where our money is and is not going to go, now they were all on the bandwagon. And all of these corporations got involved in Black Lives Matter. They weren't saying that 4 years ago.
So how would voting help us with that?
Would
that you're all saying, this is what we're talking about. So how is the voting going to help us?
the same thing with voting and our buying power tie in together.
So how?
When you have communities and politicians and where our dollars go and what we support in the programs that we want in our local communities, because I think what a lot of people don't understand about voting, people think that, you vote every 4 years. That's the most important vote. It's not. It's those local votes. It's the ones for mayor, for senator, for the House of Representatives, Board of Education, even those things. because when we're also voting, and then we are having, we get to decide what companies come into our communities, what companies are going to be able to build and employ in our company, in our cities. I'm sorry. Okay.
So now I'm going to go back to Scott.
I was thinking that you basically have to, there's like a disconnect between what the election is and everybody's self-interest. Because when I went, 2 years ago, my mother lived in Boonville, Mississippi, and I went down there. There's a bunch of black folks who live down there, but they live with a history of, more recently, of like Jim Crow and stuff like that. So it's almost like and I can't speak for everybody in Mississippi because I didn't meet everybody down there, but there's like a pall that kind of hangs over, like a defeated type of almost when it comes to politics. And so, that's not for me. That's not my interest. I think some of that's changing because of all the, like George Floyd and the protests and things of that nature. People are more animated. They're just sick of, being treated like animals, being treated like less than human just because they don't live in a posh neighborhood. And so you're starting to see some of that connection. It's like, okay, like you're saying, the elections are about just even what's going on in your school. You don't like how things are going in your school. You don't like how the teachers are behaving. You need someone that you can talk to run for school board. Everybody needs to get out there and vote that person in on those, boring Tuesday elections when nothing else is going on, but something is happening, but it's happening in your area, And I think part of that, the solution to that is simple information, not trying to sell somebody something necessarily, but just here's an issue, and here's how this issue will translate if you vote for, or you attract a candidate who believes these core issues about this thing. Like if you're somebody who says, I believe in these tenets, these particular issues, that's somebody I can vote for. I mean, you know what I mean? Like something like that, where it's just made more simple, because today's society doesn't really seem to have time for nuance in arguments, at least not, on our public airwaves and such.
And I agree with that. Like, that is why I want to have this podcast. It lets people know, like, the change that you want to make and the people that you want to either be in office or out, it all starts with voting. And for the demographic that I serve, the returning citizens, that's why I want to let them know how they can vote, when they can vote, and their position on voting. Most of the returning citizens here believe that they can't vote, and they can vote. Once you're out of jail or you're not even convicted yet, you are allowed to vote. If you are in jail, you can do an absentee voting. You still can have your voice heard. If you're out and you're just a regular citizen, you have that right to vote. I don't know where that comes from, that they can't vote. I guess because just so many things as a returning citizens are taken away, they just automatically feel like that is one of their rights that are taken away. But I'm here to tell you that is your right to vote. If you are returning citizens and you are out here, you can vote. You can come to 507 Oak Hill, Youngstown, Ohio, 44511, and we can get you registered. We have them in English and in Spanish. And if you are inside and you happen to hear this, if you are not convicted, you can ask for an absentee vote. In jail, you still have a voice, and then you can still vote. I want that to be clear for my returning citizens. You can vote. You see this? I don't know if it's upside down.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Can I say one more thing? I wanted to add to what you were saying. You said you know the where and the when. It really needs to be hit home the why. Like that's, because that's the thing that motivates people is what's your why to get out of bed to go and do it. Even connecting it to returning citizens. You don't like how the prosecutors are in your area and what they're going for. And, I forget there's a place where there's a more enlightened prosecutor where they're not trying to just raise their numbers. They actually want to help the community. And they need more prosecutors like this. I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he has a really interesting way of handling it. But that's that's how you can connect to what you're what you're doing right now. Is there's a You want these types of people. You want these types of issues raised. It's important. It's why. Not just where, but why. You got to do something. Got to get up. Got to make something a difference. Because what's the alternative?
Yeah, and for me, sometimes either you come for a solution or sympathy. If you have tools that can help the problem that you're asking for, only you're accountable after that. Once you know better, you have to do better, or you should want to do better. And just getting this basic education either should want you, to do better, or have a clear mind or a clear set of, why you're voting. Like you said, it has to be a why you're voting, where you're voting, and who that you're voting for.
And holding those people accountable when they get in the office.
Yeah, accountability is the key. That's the main thing. After you're doing it, holding them accountable. Because once again, the voice is important. Our voices are important. The more that we realize that and believe that and take faith in that and move in that, I think the easier life will kind of be for us. More doors will be open. More mindsets will be changed. But I think it is. It's up to us. It's our accountability. Like, if you know the problem, like, this is for me, like, what is my lane in that? Like, what is my part to help in that? I know I can't do it all, but whatever that my part is, I want to do that part and do it well.
Amen to that.
Let me, to your question, when I was talking about our buying power, when you have a company like Facebook, for example, Chick-fil-A and when corporations choose to throw their weight behind a politician or a particular party to get their lobbying or whatever it is that they're seeking from that politician to get them to vote or pass laws or legislation that will further or advance their agenda. These are the companies that our votes must hold responsible. So when I'm talking about their buying power, I'm talking about saying specifically to these corporations, you will go to these politicians, you will go to the government, you will go to Congress to lobby your issues to get your agenda passed, be it a tax break or a change in funding or a law or whatever the case may be, that corporation is trying to get done on the behalf of that company. We as voters with that buying power have the ability to say, no, this is not okay. This company should not be allowed to do this. Or, okay, this should be, whatever the case may be. That's what I'm talking about insofar as our buying power matching our vote. One of the biggest things, and she just spoke on it, was people not just knowing to vote, but why. That comes with education. That comes with feet to the ground, door to door, however it gets done, putting these issues out on the table and breaking them down in such a manner that people, be it a teenager or an 80-year-old man, understand what's on the table for their community and for themselves, why they need to assert their voice and use that vote in whichever way that they deem best. It's not it's not my job to assert my thoughts or opinions on anyone other than getting the message out there. This is what I believe, and those that believe like me, we're going to vote this way. When you take the time to educate yourself and you make it a responsibility to educate those around you, starting, yes, with the youth, but also those who, like she said, are returning citizens who may not have had, all the access, who don't have access to the internet or to television or to regular media, social media, whatever the case may be. It is our responsibility as a community. We have an obligation to those returning citizens to help them when they are coming back into society to be able to readapt, to have the information that they need to go on and to have productive lives and make decisions in their voting in every other aspect of their lives that are going to be best suitable to keep them from returning to jail. So all of these things play into what the power of the vote is. It is so much more than just a ballot one time at one particular day. For me, the most important votes aren't the ones that decide president. The votes that matter are the ones that decide your mayor, that decide your senators, that decide your representatives in the House of Representatives, your school board. Those are the most important because these are the ones that have had the effect on the local laws. The national laws are, yes, they're absolutely major, but the local ones are going to have the impact on you and your community first. And those are the ones that people need more education about, need more notice of. I am working on something right now. In my own community, I have sons. In this climate of this country right now, I absolutely fear what happens when black males come across the police. And I teach my sons now. I have started this know your ordinances. Know what you're allowed and what your rights are when you're interacting with the police, what they're allowed to say and do and what they're not. What your rights are, what you're allowed to say and do and not to do and be for charges to be brought against you. Those are the ones that matter the most. And until people fully understand that, yes, the general election for president is right now, especially this election, is probably the most important election this country has ever faced, including over 2008 when the election of Barack Obama, for vastly different reasons. But knowing what our ordinances are, and when we're talking about things like defunding the police and civil rights and the ability of police departments to have gotten away with so long being able to commit crimes against citizens and there have been no accountability, that starts with right there, voting, not knowing what your ordinances are, not knowing that you can go to your mayor and complain and vote them in or out when they're not holding city officials accountable. All of these things lead up to the national vote, and until we get that message out there and people are given accurate information, updated information all the time in an organized manner, we're going to continue to see these things go on because people just are lacking in the information of what's really out there. And so it has to begin again. It has to go back to our schools. But it also has to be in our homes. It has to come outside of that, and that's where I feel like citizens returning is going to make its major impact because for me, I feel like collectively it's going to take all of us to get this information not out there, but to make sure that it's implemented and that it's understood in a way that's effective and it goes way past conversation. What the next thing to do is simply getting neighborhoods involved. Start in your neighborhood. Go door to door. Talk to people. Get them registered to vote. One of the things that I want and I have started to work on in my community is I call it registrate to transportate. Getting people to register to vote, that's really not that difficult. Getting them to the polls becomes a job because when you're dealing with people who don't have transportation, especially maybe young people or the elderly, people who don't have the income, they'll register, especially if you come knock on their door and all they have to do is write their name on a piece of paper and they'll register, but getting them to show to the polls is something different. So in a sort of kind of twisted way, the coronavirus has kind of helped with that because now we have the option of absentee and hopefully mail-in voting, which is a lot less and cumbersome than standard at the poll voting. Of course, there's always going to be, the hiccups and, things that go wrong. But it begins with actually getting people to it. So talking to people, making it your business to get involved in helping in any volunteering capacity that you can do that is actually going to get people to show to the polls. And then getting your friends and your family to do the exact same thing, to do what you can. And it's really, it breaks down to outreach and how far you're willing to go to get the word out, to get these things done. When it matters to you, when your community matters to you, when what goes on in this country matters to you, there are those of us who will go that extra mile. You just have to decide if that you're one of those people. So, and once that you learn to link with others who will help you to advance those.
And you say, why can't we have someone that's more passionate that wants to get out there and help vote? And you look around, and that's you, and you have to be the one to do it sometimes. And I think that's wonderful.
I'm the eldest of 8, and I don't know how to do anything but be in charge. That doesn't. So, my passion comes from a different, several, different things. I grew up in a mixed household. I also was raised by very strict Pentecostal parents, and my dad was one who always said that a woman should be seen and not heard, and I said, yeah, try that one, good luck. So, but my first books were Maya Angelou. My dad made me copy an entire dictionary by hand. So, but the state of this nation, becoming a mother and a grandmother, I have a real fear in the direction that this country is going right now. I have a real fear. And we can complain about it, or we can get up and do something about it. That's what it boils down to. And talking about it isn't going to get anything done. It's just not going to get anything done. And it's going to take actually putting feet to ground and to do something, going outside of yourself and outside of your comfort zone to reach other people. And to, I get tired of hearing newscasters and politicians say, we have to have a serious conversation. I'm tired of talking. Let's go. At some point, the conversation has to start and the actions have to begin. And they have to be affirmative, and they have to be ongoing, and they have to be open to adjust and to change, because as things change in society in time, we as a nation will have to adapt. In voting, what we've been doing, especially since the Voting Act's right, it's been too easy to say, I have the right to do it, but I'm not going to do it. And then you sit back and then you complain about the state of things and who's in charge, but you put them in charge when you didn't show up to keep them out. You don't get it both ways. Either you care enough to get up and go about the business of getting it done, or you don't. And if you don't have the right to complain when it's being done to you or someone else does it. And it's that simple. If you're of voting age, you're an adult, and things you should understand at that time, things are not going to be easy just because you want them to be easy. And it's a hard truth, but it is the truth nonetheless. And it's a team effort. It's something that has to go on, and it begins, like I said, in the homes. There are things that our teachers should not have to teach our kids. These are things that we as parents have a responsibility to teach our kids before they get to school. And for me, citizenship and what that entails is a big part of that. And understanding how the government works, or an idea of it. And then it will be expanded on in the classroom. But the principle of it and the moral of it, it has to go back to the home. And it has to go back to parents. And that's not going to change, as it shouldn't. You can't, I tell people, I just said something the other day. Where a parent fails to be their child's moral compass, you can't get mad when you end up with a lost child. If you didn't guide them.
I wanted to chime in just on that front, because I agree it does start with the parenting, but part of it too is that you have an entire society, not a society, like an entire media that thrives and makes money off of complaint. It makes money off you being angry. And so there's a whole thing about everybody complains about it, they don't go vote, then they complain about it, and then they get that endorphin rush because they get to complain and be mad, and then you have other people who are mad and complaining, and it's like, oh, much do about nothing. Like basically the end result is everybody's mad, which is what we have now. But not enough people do things about what they're mad about. And taking action, what you're talking about, is actually getting the vote. And I don't like. I want to be patient with people because they don't get the education that you're talking about. Even the parents don't get that education. To understand what a piece of legislation is. Folks are just trying to make money to live day to day sometimes. And then you add on to that. Now I got to figure out what these politicians are trying to do, and it's almost. It's rigged against the average person really understanding how this person or this bill or whatever affects their life. And I'm just tired of being mad at the people. I want to be mad at the system. We have to change the system because that's the thing that's going to help us really grow and come out of it, is changing that, making it so that it's easier for people to understand what's happening. Just in terms of like with COVID-19, everybody's mad about, we need to get back to work. And why aren't you mad at the government for not making it so that people can stay home? Paying people to stay home so we can get this thing done. Like other countries have done. I mean, it's not, you can't pay forever, but I mean, it's proven that if people stay home, pay people to stay home, get their health care covered, then this disease can be more manageable and we can start working to eradicate it. But instead, they got us mad at each other, at each other's throats, talking about masks instead of how to help people, investing in people. I didn't want to digress too far. I don't know if you were finished, but Ms. Dion, I think you're supposed to have
Tamisha. Yeah, Tamisha is gonna come out. Let me just add quickly. When it comes to that, and like you said, people, there's an entire industry. You're absolutely right. But listen, I've just gotten it through my head. People are gonna be mad no matter what. There's never going to be an all around win. You know what I mean? For some people, I think that it takes individual choice to look past those people who live to complain. I don't have time. I can't get distracted by that. I can't, and I can't allow you, a coworker, or a neighbor, or you a relative, or you a friend. I can't let you get distracted by that either. And I tell people all the time, I'll go to a Tupperware party, a birthday party, I'll go to a Halloween party, a Christmas party. I don't do pity parties. You're going to have those people who are going to be mad no matter what. And I think that sometimes the only answer we have to that is let them be. Let them be. The rest of us have an obligation to continue to do what we need to do for ourselves and for our families and continue to do the work to move us all forward in the best way that we can do that. And just learning to not get sidetracked. And it's not easy. I'm not pretending like I have all the answers. I most certainly do not. I do not. I've had to learn, I think, especially with this administration, there are always going to be negatives. Always. The flip side of that is there's also the humanity of pushing past those things, and where we don't automatically see the bright, we create it. And then we go forward from there. And I think that as a nation, that's the best that we can do. But it has to begin with us. And until that happens, we're going to continue to find ourselves in these situations. And again, and that goes right back to what we're talking about, the vote. Deciding who we want in office, who understand those concepts and our principles, and will work to push those things forward. And to make that the norm instead of what's current. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over to Tamisha now.
Hello, hello, hello. This was unexpected for me. I will be stepping in for Ms. Dion, doing closing remarks. My name is Misha. I am program manager here at United Returning Citizens. And for this podcast, I stepped in as an assistant production director. How y'all doing? So, I think we can all agree that there are power in numbers. The sooner people realize their power, the sooner we can begin to make some changes. There's no use complaining about this one, that one, judges, officials, presidents, that if you're not getting out there to vote. Because at that point, you're becoming part of the problem, not the solution. So with that being said, we are interested in hearing your questions, your concerns. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we will be doing podcasts weekly, answering these questions and talking about these concerns so we can all get a better understanding of how to make an educated decision when it comes to voting. See my shirt? Educate, agitate, organize, vote. That's what makes all the difference. So, contact information, like us on United Returning Citizens on Facebook. Here's the website. Phone number if y'all want to call and talk, chit chat. We want to thank Team Woods for having us today and doing this podcast. It was awesome. Thank you, Miss Shay and Miss Seven. Thank you both, lovely ladies. We got to meet y'all. And we would like to thank Miss Charlene Blackwell for sounding off. She's good at setting it off. So if y'all weren't moved by that conversation, thank you, Mr. Scott. Y'all weren't moved by that, I don't know what else it's going to take. But thank you all. We hope to see you and hear from you very soon and again. And I'm going to pass it back to Ms. Seven.
All right. Thank you, Misha. We just want to thank the United Returning Citizens so much for giving us this opportunity today. This all had me thinking when Charlene was talking. My grandmother used to say, if you haven't found the help that you need, it's because you are it. So be the change that you want to see. I just want to thank Misha for inviting Charlene Blackwell to speak with us today and giving us that information. Thank you so much to Shay Cahill for being our videographer at the last second. So you're awesome for that. Thank you for putting it together like we do. And this is Seven Sabali once again signing out for Team Woods. Peace.